to Meaghan. So Meaghan is a Toronto-based comic artist, and the author of GODSLAVE, an action urban fantasy webcomic featuring Egyptian mythology in the modern day. You can read the whole comic at GODSLAVEcomic.com, and the campaign for Volume 2 is on Kickstarter. There is still 7 days left, so go and donate so you can go and get a physical copy of Volume 2. And you can read the entire comic on her website, and the art is just amazing. And I know I told some of you guys this, but Meaghan and I first connected when we both accidentally got banned on Instagram like 2 years ago.
Trial through fire.
Absolutely. Hello, Ash. Yes, we are having a lecture here with Meaghan Carter, who is the artist and author of the GODSLAVE comic. And it's going to be a casual little interview. We got a lot of questions. And then she is going to be doing some drawing requests as well. So we have a whole other page that we got to show you. We accidentally got banned because we both had... what's the name of it?
Linktree. We had Linktrees as our like website links, and so we both just got like soft blocked.
Yeah.
With no indication from Instagram.
Yeah, and it is most likely because apparently a lot of adult content people on Instagram use Linktrees, and so it seemed that there was just this wild like just anybody who has a Linktree just would get. And you're right, it wasn't even a ban, it was this soft ban where you could post photos but no captions.
No captions.
You could post stories, and sometimes they would go through and sometimes they wouldn't, and sometimes you could tag people and sometimes you couldn't, and I suffered through the 8 weeks, and then one of Meaghan's lovely followers figured it out and then told Meaghan fixed it. Meaghan then told Haley, who is one of my mods, and Haley messaged me, and I remember running away from work and sitting in this little balcony and like, I have to see, and as soon as you deleted it, it would fix. Like, the most wild thing ever. It would fix.
You saying that it was because of adult content creators is now like connecting some dots, because all of my stories that couldn't be posted, Instagram would say it was flagged for adult content, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. This is a picture of a cat.
Yeah, and that is supposedly kind of what I heard, that it was that a lot. And when the funny thing is, I was literally telling this to my roommate before, which was like, everyone used Linktree. Linktree was like the first one that everybody used. And like, honestly, up until that point, I was getting close to like maybe 2 years ago, because that was when I first got banned. That was 4 or 5 days before my MelissainDeNile 1 year anniversary, I remember. And I was like, it was such a bummer, because I had just hit 500 followers on Instagram. I was just hitting a year, and I couldn't do it anymore. The amount of times I sent stuff to Instagram being like, there's a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem. Nothing. I mean,
They're non-existent support.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I think that was like 6 weeks. I think I had 6 weeks of that. And I was like, but ironically, that's what put me more onto TikTok. And now TikTok, honestly, I essentially, because of that, I kind of abandoned Instagram. I very rarely post on Instagram anymore, because TikTok just showed me how much the following can just go off so faster.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I mean, now that I've kind of hit like to get to that first 10,000 followers, it is like a really rough road, but after that, like it would happen like relatively quickly. Like, I'm now like inching towards 50, and so it's like it's slow, and I can tell they change the algorithm all the time, but to be honest, you look at my Instagram now, I think I have 700 followers. Like, it's not what it used to be. And I tried really hard to make that work, and then I was also doing blogs, and the blogs were just taking so long. And so now, instead of writing out huge long blogs and then making shorter versions for Instagram, it's just so much easier just to make one script and then film a video for TikTok, and then I can post it everywhere. That's like so much easier. But I thought we can start with a couple questions and then we can do some of the drawing requests. So I think we'll just start out with the easy one. What inspired you to write GODSLAVE? And when did you start it? Because that's another thing I don't know.
I started GODSLAVE in late 2014. I had just wrapped up my first webcomic called Takeoff. And I wrapped that up in August, and then I was already planning GODSLAVE. Sorry, I can hear an echo on the stream.
Okay, that's fine. Let me see. Now do you hear an echo?
Hello?
Hello?
No, I don't.
Okay, good.
I can hear you. So yeah, I've been planning GODSLAVE for about a year and a half once my first webcomic wrapped up, and so November 2014 it took off.
Amazing. And what inspired you to write it? What was kind of the first maybe inkling of the thoughts of GODSLAVE?
So there's an anime called Madoka.
Okay.
And long story short, the premise of Madoka is that it's a magical girl anime, and these girls get tricked into being magical girls by this, like, if I'm remembering correctly, this little alien, which is taking the form of the, like, quintessential magical girl anime cute animal.
Okay.
So
yeah.
it's their Luna.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you find out that thing is evil, and they've tricked them into this, and they're basically feeding off their energy.
Gotcha.
And from there, I had already been thinking about Egyptian mythology and Egyptian gods and like an illustration project. And then I got into, sorry, I can still hear an echo.
Okay, that's fine. I will. Do you hear an echo of yourself?
Yeah, it's just me.
Okay, I'm trying to think of where you could hear it from. Oh, you know what? That might be where you're hearing from.
Ash asked, isn't Madoka the one where the thing just eats magical girls? Yes, it's that one. So now I don't hear an echo.
Okay, but do you hear me?
Oh, but I don't hear you, Melissa.
That's what I do.
That's
I knew
why.
it.
Okay.
I knew it.
Okay.
I think it's that you can hear me through. You can hear you through the Discord chat.
Oh, okay.
And I'm trying to think of how I fix that. I think I can. Is there something called deafen? Now can you hear me? I have a feeling she can't. No.
Discord? I think I saw something called that.
I'm trying to think. There's so many different things we're on.
Yeah. But while Melissa figures that out,
yes.
Suffice to say, I was getting into Egyptian mythology around the same time. I wanted to do like an illustration project, and then I got that hook in my head of a like creature that tricks the girl. And then it just started kind of like slowly cobbling together of a girl working for a god who maybe is not who he says he is. And it kind of just launched into then me just combing through as much Egyptian mythology research as I could get my hands on. And that started with internet research, as one does, with Wikipedia and some websites, but then I would hit dead ends of like the websites referencing books and referencing old out of print copies, but then the website would kind of cut off, or I couldn't get enough information. And then thankfully I live in Toronto, which is just a metropolis of information resources. And so not only am I like 20 minutes from a reference library that has a huge archive of out of print books, I'm also within walking distance of a museum that has their own library, which has an Egypt section. And so I kind of lucked out with this topic because there was very much a huge amount of like resources available to save me.
All right, so were you hearing a duplicate at the end?
I can't hear Melissa.
Can you hear me? No. Pete. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Did you, when I'm not talking, did you hear an echo?
No, I didn't.
Okay. I'm doing push to talk, which is my literal worst nightmare, but I'm going to do it because I will rather do that. So if I'm talking and it looks like I'm talking, it's because I'm forgetting to push the spacebar. But yeah, when I take it out, then you hopefully won't hear the echo because I'm like muted or something. I think that's how it works. So, but yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, Toronto, you're lucky. Like you do have a lot of resources for Egyptology with those big cities that have the library museums and the museums and libraries in the museums. And is that the Royal Ontario Museum?
Yes, yeah, Royal Ontario Museum, yep.
Yeah, I was supposed to go there.
Oh, you forgot to hit push to talk.
I was clicking a lot of spaces in our chat. That's what I was
Melissa,
doing.
Melissa.
What am I? I'm clicking it. I'm clicking it. Is it working?
No.
No.
Okay, so Ash asked, is it like a regular library, but in a museum, can you just use museum libraries? So what the ROM has is they don't advertise this, and I think it's mostly there for university students because the Toronto University is also very close by, and I think that's what it's reserved for. Thankfully, I could just go in, and they were very patient with me and just said, all right, you just sign in, and I could go in. I couldn't take anything out because again, these are extremely old books out of print, but I could go in. So I was very lucky with that. What an amazing Twitter handle, says Tapir. Thank you, I appreciate it. It goes with my name, Meaghan, but also I'm a big fan of Transformers, so it goes with Megatron as well.
Can you hear me now? Wait, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Yes, I figured it out. I'm dumb.
Beautiful.
I'm dumb. That's what it is. Okay. I have
just
to
walk in like.
It's weird. I think I muted myself because I thought, oh, that works like that. No, it doesn't. You have to hold it down. But I did just switch the keybind to control because if I do the space bar just keeps going in our chat. So that was our second problem. You know, everybody knows this. Melissa doesn't know how to use audio. You'll see the setup when we switch over to the thing. You'll see the setup. And thank you, Haley, for your loving dedication to make the Kickstarter command, even though you have limited things with Stream Elements.
Thank you, Haley.
Yeah, we're all very tech savvy here. It's an absolute lie, but we go with the flow. But yeah, I mean, that makes a lot more sense. I actually had a question on like what you do for research, and that is a really good idea to do that because you do get obviously the general stuff with online, but you don't get everything, and that's a really big difficulty for sure.
No, I really lucked out with this topic, it seems, and obviously like just the privilege of getting to live in a big city with not only major universities but museum and huge libraries. So I'm very thankful for that and how that worked out.
Yeah, when I did my undergraduate senior thesis, I did it in Egyptology, but we did not have. Like, we had a library, but this is not a good library. But I was interning at the Brooklyn Museum, so and their library was technically closed, like, only to, like, appointments only. So I would just flash my badge, and I would go in on my off days. But then I kept finding that there were books, like, in the Metropolitan Museum of Art's library. So then I got a library card from them, because that's free. And the thing is, though, you can't just browse. You have to know what you're doing, what book you're looking for, and ask them because they bring it up to you.
Oh, they have to take it out.
Yeah, they have like a whole like pulley system because I think like the library's like underground, so like in like their basement or something. And so I only went there once or twice when I was looking for like a really specific book and stuff. But yes. And yes, Tapir, if you can use the lecture questions channel point to make sure that we don't miss any. I have a whole series of them that some people asked over on the Discord, and so we're gonna ask them while I'm probably gonna ask maybe like 2 more, and then we're gonna do Megan's gonna do some drawing requests while we ask questions. And Megan, if you have any Egyptology questions, you always throw those my way as well.
Oh my god, now I have to think. Oh no. Okay, I'll think of some.
But yeah, if you do, but what was my other one? So this is just a completely random one, but I suddenly thought of this. It was like, is there a god that you have not included in GODSLAVE yet that you really want to include?
Sekhmet.
Sekhmet, of course.
Yeah, Hathor, Hedheru is in the comic like crazy, but we have not gotten to Sekhmet yet. And I'm really hoping to pull that trigger at some point soon. That and like obviously everybody's very good boy Anubis.
Yeah, Anubis hasn't been in there?
I mean, maybe he's in there. Somebody's in there saying he's Anubis. It's really weird.
Oh, weird. Oh, interesting. Yeah. So you have like a follower or something that's like, I think this is Anubis, but you haven't.
Oh, well, that was the thing. So like, the whole premise of the comic is that there's a god calling himself Anubis / Anpu or Anpue.
Yeah, Anpu. If it has a W at the end, and that's how we write it, but it's usually a U sound. So Anpu.
Okay.
Some people say Inpu as well. The I is a weird also letter. So like most people will say Inpu or Anpu, and you'll be able to know what it is.
Okay. So yeah, there's a god calling himself that, but it doesn't really like make sense with how he looks or what his power set is. And so it's all about, again, like that premise of tricking this girl into working for this god. But and then I forgot the question because we got talking about how to pronounce
what god would you not that you haven't included?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Sekhmet is you gotta include her. She's one of my favorites.
So you were saying were people theorizing?
Yes. Yeah. Do you have like some crazy like deep dives on Reddit or something?
Well, I haven't brought GODSLAVE to Reddit, and I haven't tried looking at Reddit on like GODSLAVE. But like the comment section in GODSLAVE is like full of like, hey, I know what a jackal looks like, and either you don't, or that's not. But and then some people kind of guessed it right away. And I was like, oh, is the reveal was I not tricky enough? Was this too obvious?
See, I think I know, but I think I'm gonna keep it a secret. But I think you did it. If I am correct, I think you did it quite well because I think it's the whole thing.
I appreciate it.
Have you ever seen Medjed? That's what Tapir's question. Have you ever seen the ancient Egyptian god Medjed?
I mean, I'm on the internet.
Yes, you're on
an Egyptian mythology comic. But actually, one of the times I sat in on your stream, you were like, "Hey, a wall of like Egyptian merch I have," and I'm like, "What is that? What's that?" And you had a Medjed pin.
I'm literally gonna grab it. It's now in my new work
okay.
thing.
You grab it because I don't know where mine is. I think it's in like one of my bags. But yes, I'm very familiar with Medjed. There he is. Yes,
there he is. There he is, the cute little boy. I was literally telling my coworker about this because I literally just put this on my new lanyard for work. This was gifted. Haley, was this you? I think this was Haley. Somebody gifted this to me, and it's like my favorite. And this will be my first tattoo. I've been waiting, and I want a tattoo.
Beautiful.
But I want him. The thing is, I keep going back and forth if I want this little guy because I mean the way that they just draw him is insanely cute. No, not you. Maybe it must have been Ashley then. I think it was Ashley for my birthday. One of my mods, and they're both Ashley and Haley. I don't know which one. But the other, I think it was Ashley. But the other thing is that I also kind of want like one of the original ones because we only have 2 actual images of this god on papyrus.
Right.
He's so minor. It is hysterical how minor this god is. And so we have 2 images of him, and I really like both of them, but I'm just like, this would be very cute, like kind of on your ankle, but like it'd also be kind of funny to have like the big one, and like just a line drawing of him.
Huge chest tat.
I was thinking of like,
piece.
I think I definitely want it on my ankle because I want his little feet to like be going the way of my feet. Like I kind of want it to look like he's like walking with me.
Oh,
but it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
that thing would be very cute, like at the very bottom of the ankle. But if I got the big one, like maybe this big, it would be just like. But if I did that, it would just be like a little line drawing because I don't want any color or anything like that. But I love him, the little baby he is, and how weird and just like how random, and the story is hysterical. Essentially, those 2 papyri went on display in Japan, and the Japanese people freaked out about it. And then he's in animes,
very
and
like
comics.
iconic.
He is. He's a little big, little baby, just so funny.
A fun little guy.
Let me answer one of Haley's questions was, what are you most excited for in GODSLAVE's future?
I feel like, parting the kimono here, Haley's like my #1 GODSLAVE fan, and I think this is just her fishing for spoilers.
Haley.
And I see you, Haley.
Oh my gosh. Haley.
I'm excited to execute on. There's like a second reveal in GODSLAVE. So the first one is like, who is Edith actually, the main character Edith? Who is she actually working for? Mm-hmm. And the second one is there is a mystery about. So she discovers this god in a museum after accidentally breaking a canopic jar. And this god was imprisoned in this canopic jar by the rest of the Pesajit, or the Aeneid. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, so they imprisoned him in this. He should not have been able to get out. There's no reason that canopic jar should have ever broken. And so there's a mystery of like, why was Edith able to do this? How was she able to do this? And none of the gods know. She doesn't know, but the god she works for knows, and he keeps saying, "I can't tell you because of the cycle."
So secretive. Oh my gosh.
So I'm very excited to execute on that reveal, and that's all I'll give you.
Haley's like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
No, absolutely not. Tapir, what do you mean? What is the ancient Egyptian god of toilets? I don't know. They don't have one.
I guess you got me, Tapir.
You got me. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know.
But I guess a question for both of us: would we rather hang out with Isis or Osiris?
Osiris.
Osiris. I think I'd be with Isis.
Oh, I think she's nuts, and I don't trust her. And I don't trust her. I think she's unstable, and I think Osiris would be much more chill to hang out with.
I do agree, but I think I just would like to really ask some questions to Isis. I think I'd just be like, "Yo, what's up?" I don't think she's like the most chaotic of the goddesses. Like that's Sekhmet for me. Sekhmet would be an absolute.
Oh, okay.
She is like. If you've ever heard, I don't know if you know, like, one of the legends of Sekhmet, but it's...
Where she gets drunk on blood?
Yeah, it's my favorite.
Yeah.
It's great. And so she's just, like, crazy. And, like, Isis, like, I think I see her a lot with, like, kind of the main, like, the generalized perceptions of, like, what Hera is like, really strong and powerful.
Yes.
Kind of scary, but, like, in a serious way and stuff. And I kind of like that idea, but also Isis can fly. So I automatically I'm like, yeah, like take me for a ride.
Osiris.
I wanna fly. Like beat that. Like he just is stuck in the in the underworld, completely wrapped up, by the way. Like that's hysterical to me because it's like Osiris should not be able to walk anywhere. Because he's supposed to be, absolutely just like
hops.
Hopping back and forth. Like should not be able to walk at all.
See, Isis freaks me out just because like she's known as like the mother goddess, the caretaking goddess, the most caring, beautiful goddess. But the story of is it Babylon, where she shows up and sets a baby on fire? And the parents are like, what are you doing? Stop that. And she's like,
I need to look
guess
that one
you didn't
up.
want your baby to have god powers. Sucks for you.
I missed that
and
one.
Then
That's...
she gets on a boat, and one of the sons is on the boat, and she freaks out on him.
This does sound familiar.
And he dies, and then the rest of the family dies.
This does sound
That's
familiar.
what I think of.
Yeah, that is true. She is a little Miss Chaos. She's got no
very
chill.
Hera.
Yeah, but like very Hera, and so I think it would be more of a just like to have some coffee with her and just like chat about some stuff, but definitely not get on her bad side. Definitely.
Yeah.
But you're right. Osiris, I think, would be very, very chill. I'm gonna grab one from Charlie via the Discord, and then we will start with some drawings. But feel free, everyone else, to ask some more. So our friend Charlie Dragon was like, "Are you familiar with other fiction using ancient mythologies as a base, like the Percy Jackson books? Any thoughts on them? Do they influence you either positively or negatively?"
I know Mummy's Alive.
Mummy's Alive. Yeah, absolutely.
That was a big influence on me when I was a 12-year-old.
Yep.
And I think that really ignited. I'm like, what are these guys? Even though when I was streaming at like the beginning of the pandemic, I watched an episode of Mummy's Alive on stream for Halloween, and I was like, what am I watching? One of the episodes we read, Apep the snake is a biker, and he rides a motorcycle on that show. And then I found out that like a common thing with cartoons back then was that studios were not allowed to be educational. Like, if kids found out that the show was trying to educate them, they were worried that the kids would just shut it off. And so it was like,
that makes a lot of sense.
Anti-educational. So I think that was a big one.
We've recently discovered, somebody keeps coming in to asking me if I've watched the episodes of the old, what was it, everyone? Is it Batman? I think there's an old Batman, was it Batman or was it Spider-Man? It was an old, live action TV show, and there was a villain that's a King Tut. Yeah, it was Batman. There's like a king, like no, that's what it is. He's like an old professor, but he thinks he's Tut reincarnated. Like he got in a head injury or something, and so he thinks he's Tut reincarnated.
Like,
so
you got Fred Flintstone.
Yeah. And so he has this whole series of goons, and like that all are like have really bad like Egyptian names and stuff, and they all fight Batman. And,
so good.
Yeah, it's a weird one for sure. I have not read the Percy Jackson, the Red Pyramid series. I had started reading the normal, the Greek series and stuff, but I haven't read any of the Red Pyramid, even though I have 2 of the books. But I'm sure I would like them. Like, I'm sure they're great. Sorry, do you think Harrison Ford is hot AF in Indiana Jones 2? Do you mean the second movie, or do you mean in like the most recent one, or do you mean because he's hot in all of them? That's the answer to that.
Yeah, the answer is yes.
The answer is absolutely yes. Like, he can still get it, and Harrison Ford can pretty much get it in any movie, for sure. I know there was one other question. So Tapir also asked, do you stream like the making of the comic? Like, do you do that anymore, or did you?
No, I don't. I don't really have the charisma required for streaming. I think I used to do like illustrations on Friday nights. Haley's very aware of this. And I just like couldn't manage, having a good talk or having a good conversation while drawing. And so I just kind of like dropped it. So it's not something I currently do.
That is completely and utterly understandable. But I'm sure people would love to see it anyway. Ash is like, do a mute stream, yeah, and that's sometimes. I know some people do that. We have a lovely one of my mods, Claire. She does a lot of mute streams where she doesn't even do anything. It's just an image, and she mostly just types with people, and stuff like that. And so like you could definitely like potentially do like drawing streams where you just type with people if that's easier. But yeah, I would watch it absolutely. mentioning that, let us switch over to the drawing screen.
Yeah.
So, Meaghan, it works. So Meaghan will draw, and I will ask her some more questions and such, and then, but use the lecture request if you want to see something special. Yeah, Ash is saying she's saying if you're doodling and showing your progress on the stream, there's definitely an audience for it. That's what they're saying. And so there are definitely people that I know that would watch it for sure, including me.
I like this idea of co-opting your audience.
Yes,
into watching my streams.
Yes, just take my audience. Absolutely. Yeah. I've converted a couple people into streaming, and I'm like all for it. I'm like, yeah, do it.
Oh,
like,
interesting.
Like I'm like, yeah. One of them was well, actually, two of our past lecturers have kind of plans for the future to like potentially start streaming, which is
sick.
Awesome. Yeah, one of them is Alexandra Artifact. She did our first guest stream. Thank you, Tapir. I didn't know that. Thank you. But Alexandra Artifact, she really wants to play. She really wants to play the Assassin's Creed games and stuff, which is like what I play. And she came to our stream because she was teaching us about mathematics and mathematicians in Ptolemaic Egypt, and like the last period of ancient Egypt, which is when the Assassin's Creed Origins game, when the time period takes place. And so what we did is I ran around in the game and she talked about it, and then we did a separate like lecture. Hi Kayla, how are you, my love? Happy late birthday. This is Meaghan, and she's taking some drawing requests and such. And I am gonna see what other questions I have on this list. And if you want any questions or drawing requests, use the lecture questions channel point so that I don't miss it. I'm gonna answer this question because it's a little bit more on my side from Tapir. Was I disappointed that the pharaohs eventually decided to move to the Valley of the Kings, and like I think the transition between moving from pyramids to like full tombs, I can admit some of it, but to be honest, while the pyramids are great in stature and like architecture ability, they're very plain. They don't have any decoration. At least the pyramids of Giza, anything before the pyramids of Giza minus not including the pyramid of Djoser. A pyramid of Djoser has the beautiful blue tiles and has little reliefs of Djoser and stuff, but none of the pyramids of Giza and none of the pyramids of Seneferu and stuff have any paintings, any text, anything. Like literally nothing. When you get to Middle Kingdom pyramids and like late Old Kingdom pyramids to Middle Kingdom pyramids, you get the pyramid texts. So they're covered in text, but still no drawings. You will get the beautiful what we call I call starfish stars, which are just ceilings of stars, but all the stars are looking more like starfishes than they do look like stars. And so it's nice. And they're huge feats of amazing engineering, but they are not they're not that pretty in comparison. I really prefer the paintings, and to be honest, it's not that they didn't have the ability, or we'll say the passion to actually draw and like do huge paintings, because Old Kingdom mastaba tombs have beautiful paintings, have beautiful reliefs. It's that they just literally didn't put them in pyramids. It's just kind of weird like that. And so even though the tombs in the Valley of the Kings and other tombs, like there are the tombs of Beni Hassan, there are tombs all the way down in Aswan that are like the elephantine gnome tombs. Like, I mean, those just have beautiful, beautiful reliefs and paintings. When you get to New Kingdom tombs, like the tomb of Ramosa, oh my god, the tomb of Ramosa is just like, and it's a very cool transition between the Amarna period and later. So like they switch halfway through this art style almost. To appear a mastaba. A mastaba is the Arabic word for bench, and it is essentially all of the tombs. If you ever look at a 3D map of the pyramids, you'll see right behind all of the pyramids of Giza these long little rectangles. The best way to describe them is they look like a block of gold. They look like a big, like, kind of chunky block of gold. And those are called mastaba tombs because they look like a bench, kind of. and they're really stark and really like they only have like 2 or 3 rooms or something like that, but they're really beautifully decorated and stuff. So Mastaba is Mastaba, Mastaba. Beni Hassan is Beni space Hasan. Beni Hassan has beautiful, beautiful tombs. You can go to a place called OsirisNet.com, I think it is. And they have lots of cool images, and actually they write out what is in every single depiction of every single wall. There we go. OsirisNet.com. Have you been to OsirisNet.com?
No, I'm saving it for myself.
Save it for yourself.
It's a reference for me.
It's great. The 2 best websites I can suggest for cool images of like tombs. OsirisNet is really great for New Kingdom stuff, and what is it called? Is it called the Giza? I'm looking it up because I'm trying to remember. The OsirisNet is really good for again old New Kingdom and some Middle Kingdom tombs. Then the other one it's called Digital Giza, or the Giza Project at Harvard University. Their website is technically giza.fas.harvard.edu. So giza.fas.harvard.edu. So that mainly has the Giza pyramids, because Harvard worked on the project, did tons of excavations there. So they have old images. They're really old, but they're really cool. And they do have a lot of 3D models and lots of different stuff. But you can like search, if you search the archives, you can search. So I'm searching for this guy named Seneb, who was this, he was a little person. He was a person with dwarfism in ancient Egypt, and you can find his tomb. And when you type in Seneb, you can see Seneb's tomb in the Western Cemetery. You can look at a profile of him, which will also connect to his tomb, and images of him from the tomb, and images of statues of him. You also find literally everyone else called Seneb, because it's also a very common name. But yeah, so you can find like tons of different stuff. But this is again mainly Old Kingdom pyramid stuff, and there is some weird stuff though. There are some non-Old Kingdom Giza stuff, but it's kind of rare. That's a very good question. Are the Egyptians known to tell themselves jokes? Yes and no. Because we don't totally know the language, we don't totally know what they're saying, but we have kind of picked up on times where they will try to rhyme things, and they'll try to use like that like rhyming scheme as kind of like a joke, or they'll do like a like they'll try to like rhyme stuff back and forth sometimes, and we kind of interpret that as like, oh, they're just trying to be funny, like trying to be interesting. But I haven't heard any like knock jokes or anything like that. So here's the lovely Edith, the main character of GODSLAVE. Just so cool watching art at work. What inspired you for like the look of Edith?
I'm very drawn to like serious girls as main characters. I've noticed this in my work. I'm not really drawn to like happy-go-lucky style girls or characters. They tend to be very serious looking. And as I was kind of developing the look for her, I got into like, I want thick brows for her, and I want her to be kind of like traditionally pretty. In my first comic, I'd done a character who almost looked like gender neutral in nature, and that also kind of off topic, but came at a time where it was like way back before third wave feminism, where I was like, I want to draw a cool looking girl, so she's not gonna look girly at all. So a lot of internalized misogyny with that character design. And so after doing that character for so long, I was like, oh, I want to draw like a girly looking girl who's like traditionally pretty. So So I did like long hair. I wanted thick brows.
I mean, I'm a thick brow girly, so I appreciate that
Yeah.
very much so. My brows are insanely thick. So I did have one.
Beautiful.
I thought of a weird question.
Okay.
How much would you say Edith knew about Egyptology before she accidentally cracked open a weird little creature from a canopic jar?
0. 0. Absolutely 0. Edith, I kind of personify as like, again, like, it's kind of like a girl who parties. Like went to university, kind of parties, kind of drinks, was like kind of popular in school. She's not super nerdy. Not that like popular people can't be nerdy, but like that's like how I slowly personified her. She is not super nerdy. She's not dumb, but she doesn't have a lot of like obsessions.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say knows nothing outside of like the general like conscious.
What you probably learned in
knows.
third grade, well, that's the other thing. You're Canadian. In America, third grade is like when you learn about Egypt for the first time, and then you'll typically learn about it again in like world history, which is usually like 6th or 7th grade. And so like that's how I usually gauge. It's like that's usually you get. And the weird thing for third grade is frequently you're learning about, especially now, you're learning about all the ancient cultures. So it's Greece, Rome, Egypt, ancient China, and then some schools throw in like another ancient African country, like Mali or something, like an ancient African group and stuff. So oh yeah, Charlie's like, has she heard of the Mummy movies? Did she watch the Mummy movies?
I think she's probably heard of the Mummy movies. She probably caught some of the Mummy movie on TV. Is what I'd give her.
Because to be honest, your comic really inspired me for this future project that is, who knows when it's actually going to happen, but I've been wanting to write a D&D campaign set in ancient Egypt, but also kind of to make it kind of an educational D&D game. And the way that I want people to be introduced, because in most D&D campaigns you all meet at a tavern, you all go to do something. I really want to do it that you all get accidentally taken on a tour of a museum, and you go into a gallery that you realize actually doesn't exist. Like this guide essentially will be some Egyptian god, who knows which one, but like he takes you into an exhibit that you don't realize. But one of the things I've thought about is everyone has to pick how much they know about ancient Egypt before to have kind of that history. It's like I would love to have one person who like knows it a lot, knows the language, is the super nerd, but I also want people to have like no idea, and like because the whole thing is that supposedly they'll get transformed back into time, and then they'll have to like get themselves back out of it. And so it was all like, how much do you know about ancient Egypt? Would you be able to go and survive if you just get dropped in the face of the earth? And I was thinking, you know what? Did Edith know anything about this before she just goes into the ancient Egyptian gallery just for funsies, just because she's at the museum and wants to go? And so that was, I definitely like had such a interesting idea. I know, guys, this is gonna happen one day, and we're gonna live stream it, but when do I have the time to write this? I don't know.
Yeah.
And also I had decided we're not
going
to use actual D&D, we're going to use another RPG, because I do not have the time to think of a world where like dwarves and halflings also lived in ancient Egypt. Like I don't have the time to rework all of that into my mind. But luckily there is a RPG campaign, which I think is called Scion, if I remember correctly. Ruby Mad Hatter, shout out to Ruby Mad Hatter. He was the one who introduced me to it. It is almost essentially a Percy Jackson-esque game where you essentially find out that you are a descendant of one pantheon. And the best part is there are multiple pantheons, including Egyptian, Greek, Roman, I think there's Native American, I think there's a Chinese pantheon, And not even joking you, there is an American pantheon, so you can be related to Uncle Sam or Paul Bunyan.
Oh,
Or
I
like-
was thinking like the Jersey Devil.
It's like, I don't know. I think it's, I know I know Uncle Sam's in there. I think Paul
my
Bunyan's in there.
God.
I think Betsy Ross might be in there, who like made our first flag. I don't even know. But yeah, it seems like a really cool game, and it seems like the best basis to like set it in the real world, because there's just not a lot of, there are some D&D campaigns that like they take you and you're all like in the real world and stuff, but it gets a little bit confusing.
Right.
So Tapir, I have an okay level of knowledge of the Hyksos period, but I think because we're doing this interview with Meaghan, I think we will focus a little bit more on some God-slave questions and some more generalized Egyptian mythology. I can definitely talk to you guys about the Hyksos, and if you think that's a good idea for a lecture, in my Discord there is a lecture stream requests page where you can write down any ideas for lectures that I will give, because that's the new plan. If anybody didn't know, that we're doing one guest lecture a month, and then I'm giving a lecture once a month.
Ooh.
So at the end of this month, on the I don't know what date, I think it's the 28th. Yeah, on the 28th, I'm giving a lecture on ancient Egyptian scribes and scribal palettes, and just about like writing in general. So that's what we're doing then. So I love Sobek lounging in his throne. It's very fun to think about like if the gods would be like really big, or if they would just be like normal size. I kind of do like the like over heightened thing where they're just supposed to be like really weirdly large and can make themselves smaller, but I like that idea.
I also like that. I'm a big fan of the tropes around like what happens when humans kind of interact with beings not of this plane, and how does that like physically affect them? What does that look like? And so yeah, I'm also a big fan of like them. It's almost like uncanny value, that like it's not right how big they are, and so yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yeah, I think they did that. I feel like they did that in the Percy Jackson movie, which I know a lot of people don't like the Percy Jackson movies. I love them, but just don't judge me for that. It's because I love Pierce Brosnan, and everybody knows this because there is a clip of me in my clip trailer that says I love Pierce Brosnan. But I like how they did. I think they did that at some point. I think when he eventually goes to like Olympus, like you see him and he's like itty bitty. Like I've never been like the like super small and then like the huge person.
Yeah,
I've been like
1.5 times.
Yeah, I think that's a very good like ratio and stuff. Like I like that. And like when they did like in Hercules, like his dad's obviously as big as the statue and stuff, which is acceptable and good, but because he's a statue. But yeah, it's kind of like I like it like 1.5, like just enough to be like even the tallest person is like you're still bigger than me. Like I think I like that. Haley had a question. Who is your favorite non-main character in the comic? I'm sure that's a very hard question to ask.
It's I guess, Haley, who do you think are the main characters?
Oh, that's another good question.
Because the first thing that comes to my head is Chen, who is kind of the rival to
I think that
Edith.
It's been a while since I've looked at it, but I really loved the two characters that always are trying to go and like find her. I've always loved them and their dynamic.
Oh, good.
Yes, I think they're just so fun. I think it's not totally the bumbling like henchman, but it also kind of is like it's because they're not a full henchman kind of that it's like, but they still kind of bumble around and they still just can't get her, and I kind of love that.
Yeah, they're capable, but yeah, they haven't been able to pin her down. I'm a big fan of like easily irritated good guys. It's like my favorite kind of characters. So, and I think of Chen and Horus's people and the blacksmiths as them believing themselves to be the good guys. I also kind of write those two, Chen and his partner, as like shitty teens. So there's one point where they steal some of Ida's stuff, including her phone, and one of the girls is just like posting shitty selfies to her Instagram account.
Amazing.
So I would say it's Chen.
Haley loves Chen. That's a very good. I love that question. I want to know a little bit more about like your process and stuff, and like how far ahead do you have this planned? And because the big thing I think that's a pretty different with like I would think a lot of people's perceptions of like say like a graphic novel or something is that you post only like one or so pictures of like or pages a day, but then you also said like in your Kickstarter volume 2 is done and like you're ready to like send it out in that way, but then I'm gonna assume you're only gonna post one page per like on the website still, even though volume 2 is done technically.
Well, volume 2 is up on the website.
Oh, it is up on the website. That's what I wasn't sure.
Yeah, you can read the whole thing. Like right now we're in chapter 6, so we're already a bit ahead of volume 2. So you can read it all online for free, and then you can decide whether you want the big boy book for yourself. As far as process or like writing, there's 2 arcs planned for GODSLAVE. And right now we're in the first arc, and that's gonna be about 9 chapters, and we're in chapter 6 right now. We're just about to wrap up chapter 6. And I have that pretty. I know the beats I want to hit. I know the reveals. Thank you, Haley. Much appreciated.
Just reiterate.
I know where I need to end up. And I have a good idea of like point A to point B, how to get there. I have left it purposely kind of open because a webcomic takes a long time. I'm doing this as I go, and the pages, like you said, they slowly go up. It's not all planned in one big chunk. And so my skills as a writer are also evolving and changing. I'm not the same person I was when I was in 2014. And so it leaves that room for me to change my mind and be like, oh, you know what? This works way better. I need to go with this route. So there's that room for that. And then the second arc, I have, again, an idea of like where we start off once the first arc ends. I have an idea of like where it ends, but it's extremely loose. I haven't completely planned that out. So it's arc 1, the first 9 chapters. Where we go from here is kind of beat for beat planned out, but there's room for me to kind of mess around with it still.
Amazing. I mean, yeah, that definitely is, because I think, I mean, webcomics are just so cool, and like you having the art available to do it as well, like obviously that's a huge extra step of things to do, is that I'm sure you're writing stuff like down and then you're like, okay, but now I have to plot out what I'm actually showing.
Yes.
Yeah,
it's definitely a balance of like not only kind of planning out and researching the writing and the story, but then also researching what does this look like? How do I design it? How do I give myself enough time to design this so I'm not designing it on the page, which is exactly what I've had to do in a lot of times where it's just like, I don't have time to do a bunch of concept art, so we're just designing this on the comic page.
Oh my gosh. And yeah, it's not one image a day, it's just on the website.
No.
How often do you post a page?
Right now I'm posting once a week.
Once a week. Yeah, so it's once
much
a week.
More manageable.
Yeah, once a week, one page will go up. I'm sure she has lots of stuff already pre-done and pre-written and stuff, but it's once a week the new page will come up again to it. Yeah, and then Charlie's like, and room for the characters to do what they want, which is something that happens, I'm sure, is that suddenly you're like, wait a second, that's not what should happen.
Well, Chen is actually a great example. I had no intention whatsoever for Chen to be a reoccurring character at all.
Yeah.
It was going to be a one-off, he's in the fight, and then he's out. But then I had so much fun writing him. The audience really loved the back and forth with him and Edith. And I was like, all right, let's do this again. Because apparently we're both vibing really well.
Can you draw Chen for us?
Yes, of course.
I always love the Sobek, but I want to see Chen. I remember when I first met Meaghan again, like 2 years ago when we had our Instagram troubles. I went deep into GODSLAVE. I read everything, and then I think it's literally might been 2 years since I've caught up to it, so I have to like go back and see where I am, because I loved it so much, and I just think the whole concept of, I like a little bit of mystery, and I am. This is a bad. I can call myself out on this. I'm very big at trying to predict what happens with TV shows and movies, and I'm really good usually. But as per, I literally went to go see like Indiana Jones 5, and I had. But the other thing is because there are still TV shows and movies that are throwing like complete random plots like out there, like they'll throw like the craziest one. Frequently I will go for the craziest one, and then the one will usually be simpler. So a good example is Knives Out, the mystery movie with Chris Evans and all that. I had a whole other plot roaming in my head, and it was so much simpler. Like it was such a simpler answer, and so I was slightly disappointed, but that's because of my own like hype up or whatever. And so I really love kind of mysteries like this, especially long running ones, because any little thing, like I try to analyze and try to go around, and I'm like, okay, well actually this is what this means, and and stuff like that. And so it's I just love something like that, and especially one that does bring in a lot of obviously what I like and Egypt in there, and I think it brings it in so well, but also teaches you a lot about it as well. I think that's like the best part, is that I don't think you need to go into this comic knowing anything about ancient Egypt. I think you'll learn definitely a lot.
I'd prefer if you didn't, actually.
Yeah, honestly, it's probably the way to go.
No, I genuinely appreciate you saying that, because as someone with no formal education in like Egyptology or myths or Egyptian religion, I am sometimes nervous when I do see some like Egyptologists in the comments of like, oh no, I've just slapped this together. So hearing that like you still enjoyed it, it means a lot.
Yeah, and it's kind of a thing, and I can get my little hang-ups, like everyone knows my little hang-ups about like Assassin's Creed Origins and just like the things that they messed up with that, and like but mainly I think I've just gathered and used my platform to really talk about stuff that has to do with ancient Egypt, and just talk about the differences and what's not really true and what is really true. But for the most part, there's nothing really. I'm trying to think like really hard for something that like really annoys me. Most of the time I just laugh about it. So like we play this game play this game called Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy, and it's about a kid named Sphinx. It's from like the 2000s or something. They have 3 video games. I highly recommend anybody play it. It's one of my favorite games we've ever played. And we're actually just about, probably in a couple weeks, we're going to start the 3rd one, which is called Battle of the Gods, I think.
Oh my god.
And it's about a kid named Sphinx who lives in ancient Egypt, and he and his buddies break into the pyramids, and he accidentally breaks open not Sphinx and the Cursed Mummy. No, that's another video game. We also like that one. No, I mean Ankh. Sorry, that's what it is. Ankh.
Oh.
And then so it's Ankh 1, Ankh 2, and Ankh 3. And they break into the pyramid, and he accidentally hysterically knocks over canopic jars. And sets the ghost of the pharaoh out, and he gets cursed essentially, and then but in the curse he also takes this Ankh, and he like almost kind of saves himself because of that, and he needs to like figure out how to get himself uncursed but also return this Ankh to either the pharaoh or Osiris, because both of them are kind of battling it out for it. But the one thing that is really annoying, but also just mostly funny, is that there's a theme song, and it's called I think it's called This is Cairo, which is not the name of the ancient Egyptian city at all.
No.
Like Cairo
Even
is
I know that.
Cairo is like the modern city, but the song is such a bop that I just let it happen. It's just like a funky little like, oh, this is Cairo, and it's just like very 90s and 2000s, and so we just let it happen, even though that's like really bad and stuff.
I might be retreading old ground, but I'm curious, how did you like the Marvel show?
So this is bad. I have not watched it yet.
Okay.
But I should have watched it. 2 weeks ago I had a week off between my old job and my new job, and I should have watched it. But I know that I'm gonna like it, and I don't think there's gonna be that many things to annoy me. Though the one thing I already know that's gonna annoy me is I think one of the gods, it's not mispronounced, but they kind of say her name a weird way.
Is this?
Maybe. I also think it might be Thoth. I think people are calling it Toth. I don't know. Essentially, my roommate watched it, and she was talking to me about some of the gods, and she said a name, and I was like, what?
Moon Knight. That's the name of that ding dang show. Moon Knight.
Moon Knight, yes.
Yeah.
And I was like, who are you talking about? And they were like, I'm pretty sure it was Toth. I think they said Toth instead of Thoth. And I'm just like, it's not wrong, but like, because the other thing is, Thoth is not his name in Egyptian. Yeah. Like, so it's Jehuti. Yeah. So it's like, okay, like I'm fine. Like the whole kind of big thing is like the Ash is listening to the This Is Cairo. It is a bop. I'm telling you, it just is. It's a fun song. It's like the most camp game I've ever played, and I don't really even know the definition of camp, but it is camp because they keep making jokes of themselves, and they keep making jokes like almost breaking the fourth wall kind of jokes about like the whole time. Is a bop is the same as a banger? Absolutely, that is exactly what that means to Pierre.
Well, I think bop is like it's poppy, you can dance to it. Where like banger,
I would agree.
To me personally, is like you're stomping your feet.
Yeah, I would agree. I think banger could mean like it's more of a rockish song. I would completely agree.
Change my mind. I don't want to drive horse. I'm gonna drop some.
Yeah, I have played it on stream, Ash, but it's been a while since we played the first game, and then we played the second game immediately after the first game because we had so much fun. And now we taking a break, but we're gonna play the third game in just a couple weeks. I think we're gonna end Sims Medieval, and we're gonna play the third game because Sims Medieval is harder than I thought. I remember it. We literally had to forge the Philosopher's Stone yesterday, and it was really hard. It was really hard.
Sims is so weird, man.
Sims is so weird, and Sims Medieval is even weirder because it doesn't let you do everything that you can do in Sims. I'm not even joking you. Last week when we played, our character was, I think we were playing as a knight or something. Our character got mugged like almost 12 times in one stream. And the worst part is every time they get mugged, because they're a knight, they have to fight them. And so then they kept fighting, and then she kept getting injured because she was such a low level of a knight. And then every time it would happen again, she would still be injured, and so she would just pass out and just lay there for way too long.
Oh my god.
I got really pissed. I was so mad. Our lovely little Bast, or Sekhmet, or any other cat goddess as well.
I'm gonna try Sekhmet, even though I'm not looking at a reference image of a lion right now, so this is gonna be fun.
Let's go for it. Give us Sekhmet, absolutely. Let me look for another question. And I guess this kind of paired up to the last question and stuff. Like, do you prefer we'll say the writing / the planning of the story, or do you prefer the drawing?
The drawing.
I kind of suspected that.
Yeah. You're writing, you're drawing fine. No, yeah,
Wow, that was not meant to be an insult. It was more of, you're an artist. Like, I expect you to.
yeah.
Like, believe me, if I could draw, I would 100% do, like, a webcomic or anything like that. I do writing, but not recently at any point.
But yeah, no, drawing just feels like it's the full execution of the idea for me, where writing is still like the concept. And so drawing feels like, oh, I'm making it real once I can actually see it. So it's more satisfying to me for sure.
Yeah. Hi Hitosama, welcome. Also, thank you so much, Biu Latil, for the follow. When everybody heard that alert, that was that loud, because I had to change the whole thing, so I can't hear them anymore. But I'm hoping it wasn't too loud or too quiet. If anybody has any questions for Meaghan, she is the artist and author of the GODSLAVE comic, which we can throw out the link again there. But she's doing some drawing requests. There we go. Oh, look at that.
Ba-bum.
Ba-bum. And then we also, if you do exclamation point Kickstarter, that will show her Kickstarter, which just got funded today, but hey, she needs more, so she can make more.
This is officially a celebration stream.
Yes, absolutely. And any bits, tips, or subs that happen today will be added into my donation because I want a copy. So I will be adding to the Kickstarter as well.
Thank you.
But yeah, feel free if anybody has. You can use the lecture questions alert, which will show you, which will pop it up so that I can see and make sure. But let me see. I think I have a couple more questions. So Charlie's got the big questions. So there would obviously be a large difference in culture between ancient Egypt and modern US/Western countries. How much does that influence the interactions and story in the comic? Or have the gods kept an eye on modern society and are somewhat familiar with it?
So we don't get a lot of time in the story to kind of explore the gods kind of fumbling their way through what's a TV, what's all this. I think I remember doing a gag comic with Edith and her god, where she felt like she had to explain everything to him. She's like, "Oh, right now I'm brushing my teeth," and he's like, "Yeah, I know." And she's like, "Oh, so this is makeup. We use this." She's like, "We had makeup." Like, do you think we lived in holes? And she's like, I don't know what you do. And then she like turns on a faucet and he freaks out.
And then he freaks out, yeah.
Yeah. So that takes some adjustments like off screen, but otherwise, I think there are some gods who have completely removed themselves from modern society, are living it out in the underworld or the land of the gods, and then some who have just like fully entrenched themselves into modern day. Horus, Heru, is running some kind of like huge corporation where he staffs all of his blacksmith soldiers. He calls it his temple, but he's very much of the modern day. And Hathor, Heru, and Sobek, who show up in the comic, are also like, they're fully there in modern day, with modern day priests as well, who are working with them. And then we have like a little montage of gods at like one of Hathor's parties or gala.
Oh yes, I remember that.
Yes, so it was just like a little who's who, and you can kind of take your pick of like, some of these are probably like fully entrenched in modern day and some of them are just coming down for the gala.
Yeah, I think that's really cool because I think that shows a lot of the differences between the gods that I think people don't totally understand, is that like, we obviously have the big gods that have these huge cult centers. We're talking the Isis cult, we're talking Hathor, sometimes you get Sekhmet in there, but you get Osiris, you get Horus, you get Ptah, like gods like that. But then we get what Egyptologists have kind of called household gods, household deities. And that's not an insult to them at all, but to be honest, I think it means they are much more widely worshipped by a larger group of people, but they don't have huge cult centers. So like the big three in my head, Hathor kind of does bridge that gap a lot, because she is, and these household gods and goddesses, they all have to do with protecting the home, protecting women, protecting childbirth, protecting children, mainly. And the other thing a lot of people think is that, oh, there's only one god for each random like thing, and that's not true.
Oh, no.
No. And even probably in some Greek pantheons, people still think that, and that's still not even that true. I think it may be a little bit more true, but in Egypt it's absolutely not true. It's a lot of gods and goddesses can cover lots of topics and stuff. And even depending on the time period. Some time periods they will, like Isis, when Isis was worshipped outside of Egypt, she was like a goddess of the sea, which is not something.
Oh.
Yeah, and I only learned that recently when I did a short little series on TikTok about Isis temples outside of Egypt. So like there's one in Pompeii, and there's actually one in Szombathely, Hungary, that was during obviously the Roman Empire, but it spread kind of that far north. And yeah, and she was like a goddess of the sea, but also like in general like a goddess of women and protection and stuff like that, but not really what we kind of know her as. There we go. Bloody Sekhmet. But I think it's cool because I think you're right. I think the household gods like Taweret, Bes, Hathor, what's another one that's kind of, those are the big three that mainly I always say, like those people I can totally expect them to be like integrating themselves with society, and even probably more so than like, I'm sure Horus in your world, he's the head of the corporation, but I don't know how much he like goes to Starbucks, kind of.
Yeah.
Things like that. Like he's integrated in there, but like, is he really? Like, and so like I think, and even like Hathor like having her own like temple and stuff, like she's there, she's not hanging out in the underworld, but like, is she really integrated into society? But like you could 100% like say, like Bess is over at like a stand-up comedian like thing, like he runs like something like that, or like to where it probably runs like a midwife house or something like that, and like is straight up interacting and maybe disguised even more, like kind of very like I'm just doing what I do best, and you don't gotta know my real name, kind of stuff like that.
There's a gag in the comic where Edith and Hathor's priest win a fight, and she's like, "Oh, I'll throw another party." And Edith is like, "No, I'm done with parties." And eventually they're like, "All right, what do you want to do? How do you want to celebrate
this is one of
fight?"
my favorite parts. I remember this so much.
So they go to essentially in-world Boston pizza, which I don't know how prolific that is in the States, but it's basically like family pizza chain.
I was gonna say, it reminded me a lot of like an adult Chuck E. Cheese, or like a David Buster's, which is like a bar, and they have bar food and they have games and stuff. Like that's very much like what it reminded me of, which I love. But
yes,
it's so that scene is so funny because they gods don't know what
Hathor
to do.
coming in.
They're so confused.
They're like, "What is this place?" And she's like, "A mortal test." So yeah, I think that's exactly it. We're like, there's some level of integration, but still there's separation for a reason.
Exactly.
Otherwise, we get more ISIS incidents.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So Tapir was wondering if the text on the first page of the comet is actual ancient Egyptian text, or if it is just a humbo jumbo of random things.
It is an Egyptian text, but it's like Egyptian text referenced from like some Egyptian text images I was using. Like it's based off a temple wall that I was looking at. So there's no like, if you translate it, I don't know what it says.
And this is one of my things. That's the way to do it, because I do not expect video game people, artists. I do not expect people to hire an Egyptologist to write and translate something for you, which has happened. For example, the zoo in Memphis, Tennessee, where I went to grad school. Memphis has a very weird connection with Egypt because it is named after the ancient Egyptian capital.
Right.
Andrew Jackson, who later became president, he named it that because both of the cities started were both at the base of the delta. So like, even though Memphis doesn't look like it's at the base of the Louisiana Delta, it technically is. It starts kind of sprouting out from there, and so he named it that. But then afterwards, they built a giant pyramid, which is it was originally a basketball stadium, and then it was a conference center, and now it is the largest Bass Pro Shops in the world. And I'm not even joking you. I love it. Don't knock it until you go. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's very weird. It has a duck call museum, a duck like fake ducks and duck call museum, which my friend works at. It has a hotel where you can sit in these rooms that look into it. There is an elevator that goes all the way to the top. And there are literal ponds with crocodiles and fish and boats sitting in the ponds in the building. It is a very weird version of Disney World. It is. It brings me so much joy every time I go, because I think people don't think it's like gonna be anything, and I'm not like I am an outdoorsy person. I'm not that type of outdoorsy person, but I enjoy it every single time. It's amazing.
Well, when you said like Bass Pro Shops, I imagine a store.
It is absolutely a store, but it has literally everything else.
Oh my god.
But yeah, it's right there on the river, so you can see it. I looked this up before. I think it's like the 13th tallest pyramid or something. Like, it is actually really tall. It's really huge.
Oh my god.
Please look up pictures. But then they also have, like, the University of Memphis there has an Institute of Egyptian Art and Archaeology, which is where I got my master's, and they have a model of a statue of Ramses that they had when a Ramses tour in like the 80s or something went, and so they actually brought this model, and now it's sitting at the university, and they have an Egyptian collection there. And then their zoo is what I meant to be talking about, is they actually did it looks like a temple facade, and the bye Ash, thank you so much for hanging out. Oh no, you're having a baby! I got a friend that my adoptive sister is giving birth. Go run!
Oh, sick!
Sick! Have fun, Ash. Thank you so much for saying. They essentially made a temple facade with like the huge pylons and everything, and instead of doing like in Egypt they have the what is it called? It's called like the Sphinx walk, where it's all these sphinxes lining up. What they did was they made these giant cutouts of animals like that are in the zoo, and so you can walk up to it, and so there is also all these hieroglyphs, and they essentially hired my professor at the institute to write out their the zoo's motto, I think, or the zoo's like some like phrase, like their I can't think of the word for it, like their promise or whatever, to write it out in hieroglyphs, and they did write it on there. Like that happens, but that is a very rare exception. But the big thing with me is I just don't want you to make up glyphs.
Oh, right.
Because the easiest, so I have all this crazy weird Egyptomania pieces that I grab, and like the first thing I look is I try to see if I see a glyph that is like, if I can just see it. Like if I look at it and I'm like, there are glyphs that I don't recognize, I will admit that, but there are mostly ones that I can, and if I look at that and I'm like, that doesn't look right, then I'm like, okay, you just made it up. Like, just go online and look at images of glyphs. You can literally do what you did. Pull up a temple, and you can put them in whatever order you want. I do not expect it to say anything, but just make sure they're actual glyphs. That's like my big thing. Melissa Champollion, what are you saying to me?
There was like one point, so there's one point where Edith is talking to Ra, the tiny bird, and I had some people who'd studied hieroglyphs in the language in reading the comic and commenting, and so I messaged them privately, be like, hey, can you translate a couple phrases for me and just like tell me like how to write this? and they were very kind enough to, I was like, okay, this is like kind of the energy of what I want to say. How can he say this properly? And so that conversation is literally translated right.
Perfect.
Out of the kindness of those readers' hearts.
Amazing. That's like perfect, because that's what my professor was always like. He never taught us via made up sentences. He always took them from somewhere, and so he was always like, never make up a sentence. Like always use something that's already there, because I guess it's just like, I think the ability that like something is wrong is whatever. But what am I doing? Part of my merch is that I make people's names in hieroglyphs and I make up the stuff.
Right.
So like I'm like, this is just for fun though. But like that's what I try to do, is like I try to do it at the very basics. I don't really like doing sentences, but I do technically sell sentences if you want it. I did have somebody, if you guys didn't see this, I did have somebody commission me to make fuck around and find out in the best way. That was a lot of fun. It was very hard because I could not find what the word for sex was in my dictionary, and I was like, come on, it's gotta be there. It's under copulate, so I should have known better. But I did find it.
There's a penis hieroglyph.
Yes, and then of course it's like, what is the glyph for it? It is a penis, and that's just, I just had to move around that because there's no other way to get around that.
Yeah.
But she loved it, and it was great, and so I want to do some more of like that. But I'm much more comfortable with the names in hieroglyphs, because some of them are sentences, but most of them are just like short little phrases and can be pretty easy to do. Like I've shown everyone mine for a long time, which was Melissa means bee in Greek, and so my name would literally be Bit, which is the Egyptian word for bee. But hysterically, I made one for my former coworker, and her name means honey, which is also Bit. But instead of drawing just the B and then the T, which is just like a feminine like ending, you write the B, the T, and then you draw a little pot to just show this is what comes from a bee. But like that's it. Like you don't add any letters, you don't do anything, and that's just like the weird thing with, we can have the exact same name, but it means something completely different because of one tiny glyph.
The qualifier.
Yeah, essentially like we call them determinatives, and so it just helps you determine what it is and stuff. Oh, that Discord link didn't work to Pierre? I'll have to figure that out. You might be able to if you go to my profile, like on Twitch, it might be there. The meaning of fuck around and find out is more mess around and find out. I wouldn't have gone that way. I can't remember what I did. I have it up somewhere.
But it's funnier if it's fuck.
It's funnier if it's fuck. I had to have like a weird way because I didn't want. Which way did I do it? It's so what I did a much more literal thing, where I said, if you fuck around town, then you will learn my wrath. That's what I decided to do. I did it a little bit more specific and such.
Yeah.
But it's in Egyptian it would be ir nekhek hair nui rek hek en desherti. That's what I got. But yeah, that was a difficult one because it is hard to be like, that's not specific. Like it's not. You're right, because you're right, Charlie's Dragon. It's not the actual word and stuff. Like fuck. It's you're right. It's mess around, but like mess isn't a word in ancient Egyptian. So it's like trying to find the words. I'm very bad with synonyms as it is. So I was looking up crazy synonyms, trying to like find out like the best way to do this. Oh, look at that Sphinx. Gorgeous. So pretty. I like it with like long neck because it makes it a little bit creepier.
Yeah, it was interesting looking up. I finally got a Sphinx into the comic, and when I did, I was like looking up references, like, all right, how do people tackle like Sphinxes at like different body parts and different angles? And I was like, I want mine to be a little weirder. I don't know. But on that subject, I am curious with the idea of like you being an Egyptologist and reading GODSLAVE. Did I get anything wrong? Because again, to be clear, I have no formal education in Egyptology or religion, and so I'm very curious. And did I get anything wrong?
So at the moment, I cannot think of anything. Again, it's
Okay.
been a little bit since I've seen it, but I don't think I ever saw anything that was like profoundly wrong or something like that. I think there definitely gave me a lot of thought to think about like the gods as actual people, because I think that's just something that I don't really think about that much. I think it's kind of a way to kind of separate a lot of what I learn is that like did the ancient Egyptians actually think of these beings as people? Like, did they actually think they walked the world with them and that they could just like go up and talk to them and stuff? Or is it like a little bit different? Because there is actually I really need to find this. I've referenced this article a lot, but there's a Egyptologist named Barry Kemp who works at University of Oxford. He's worked on the Amarna project for years now. And when I was doing my senior thesis on the Amarna, the city of Amarna, I stumbled upon an article he wrote about how potentially that the majority of Egyptians were very secular. And it was a really interesting thing to think about that not everyone in ancient Egypt was super, super religious, because I think that is something that is probably proliferate. I think that is a misconception that is probably shown around, that like everyone knew all the gods, everyone was super, super religious, and like I don't really think that was even how it was seen. Even with these household gods, did they really see them as like religious figures like Christians nowadays see God, or Jewish people see Yahweh or Allah, or like did they really see them as like this all-seeing being that can strike you down with one fellow swoop? Or is it something that they saw them as almost, I've heard like lots of concepts of people saying that like the gods are rather ancestors and they like look after them, and they're just kind of more, it's more a very more spiritual way to look about it. And like if they only worshipped these household gods every day and they would just say, Tueret, please protect my children, Tueret, please protect my wife, like are they really seeing them as these like huge all-powerful gods, or are they just kind of these people that they're just like, yeah, can you watch over them, can you do that, like? And so it's a very interesting concept to think about, like how somebody would interact with one of those gods, whether or not they saw them as either this huge being or not. And I think that's even more interesting to me, that like we say like Edith doesn't have a lot of knowledge of Egyptology, and like because obviously she is also a modern person who does not worship Egyptian gods, how is she interacting with the gods? Does she always look at them with like brevity and like always like super scared of them and stuff? And it's a very interesting way to rewrite my mind, kind of like with this, is like kind of looking at it like, how would you interact with gods, how would you see the gods? Because it's also the entire conception of, we'll say, magic, which in ancient Egyptian is Heka, which they talk about, and Heka is almost sometimes is used as a name for the ancient Egyptian religion. Not totally, but is kind of the best we have for a name for their religion, a name that people would recognize, is that like magic is kind of, and that magic of course is just how we translate it, which is not even that great anyway.
Right.
But yeah, I don't think at the moment, I do not think I've seen anything like glaring, I always do this, I say blaringly, and that is not a word, glaringly wrong. But again, I am also a very flexible kind of person. We had a very deep debate in the Discord about the Mummy and about the Mummy movies and stuff, and how I can put things aside pretty easily, and actually no, it wasn't about the Mummy, it was also about Assassin's Creed Origins. I have a couple like really big Egypt fanatics who like do so much research, like independent Egyptologists pretty much at this point, and one of them really wants everything to be perfect, and so they're like really mad that like they put like the Temple of Karnak. It didn't even have its outside wall, and I'm like, yeah, I didn't even know it had an outside wall. Like that is too small of knowledge to like keep in my head when I have all the other stuff going on. So it's sometimes I'm sure there are people that are like wanting things to be exact, and that is not me. Just because I think I understand the parameters that artists and writers and producers have to go through, because it's just hard to include everything.
Well, yeah, it's like it's a setting. It's kind of like a foundation rather than like, oh, it's time to make our Egyptian mythology homage. When Moon Knight came out, a friend of mine was like, "Oh, you gotta watch it. I want to know what you think about it when you watch it." And I watched it, and I really liked it. And like it takes its liberties. Who is it? Ammit is like the big villain. And I was like, okay, well, she's not a bad thing. She's like neutral at worst. But it's like, okay, I get it. Like, she's one of the more monstrous looking things. It's easy to make a villain out of that. They also don't have superheroes with the gods, so like you're already starting.
That is hysterical. I had no idea that Ammit was the villain.
Yes.
But you're totally right. The funniest thing about this, I did a video on Ammit, and I realized Ammit's probably the only god that never leaves the afterlife. Like literally, you never see Ammit in anything else than the position that she is in, sitting next to the scales. She is never depicted anywhere else, and it is so interesting that they would make her the villain, because you literally never see her in any other depiction. They never talk about her in any other depiction. She's either in front of the scales, and then in some cases you throw your heart into like a pool of fire, and those are the only two like differences that you ever see her in. So that's so interesting. I did not know that.
So I was like, yeah, it makes sense. And like you say, like I'm a fan of this. That's why I'm drawn to it. So like anything that like, it's very clear that the people working on it wanted to do like something cool with it. And I'm like, all right, as long as it's cool. I think the only thing I was like slightly disappointed by was that they go to the underworld at one point, and I was like, it's kind of boring looking. It's more than like oh, this is inaccurate. Like, oh, they clearly didn't research this. So I was like, this is just kind of boring.
Oh, I can't wait. I need to watch it. It's been on my bucket list for a very long time, because the problem is then I want to I have to make content out of it. I have to film myself doing it. So I think that's why I haven't done it yet. It's because I'm like, well, I guess I have to film myself watching this and like write down all my reactions and make all these videos, and I think that's why I'm secondhand not doing it.
It's homework.
It's homework. Absolutely, it's homework.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, look at this. Do you have fun? Do you like drawing like fighting scenes? Like, do you kind of like those like movement, it's one of those things that like, I do a lot of writing, and I have this book that I've been writing since I was like 13 on the side and stuff like that. And I've been wanting to do more about it, and I've wanted to do like battle scenes and like fighting scenes and stuff, and I have no idea how to write it. And I'm literally like, I think about this all the time, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to put her in that scene because I don't know how to write that she slashed a sword across the chest. Like, I don't know how to continue to write like longer scenes like that. So I was curious if like there's a difference between like you like drawing certain types of scenes more.
I like action scenes. Like, I grew up in like the manga boom, and I was also especially attracted to like boys like shonen manga, which is like all fight scenes. And I specifically, when I started GODSLAVE, I was like, I want to teach myself how to draw fight scenes with this comic. And so you can read the comic. Again, it's all up there for the whole world to see me learning how to draw fight scenes.
Amazing.
And so it starts in small ways, and then I feel like I've gotten better. But a lot of it was also just like, I went back to the manga I loved in fight scenes and looked at how they did those actions. And so if I also, like you described, like having to write a fight scene sounds just awful. Like having to go through that mental exercise of writing it. So I would say like read like books with fight scenes and see how they plot it out. The best thing that I was taught by from a teacher in art school was like it's action and reaction. So it's not just like punch, 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 punch. It's like punch into a closed fist, and then it gets thrown away, and then being thrown, you land on a table, and then what happens on that table? Like it should all lead into like something else. And so I think that's probably like the best thing I can advise. But I genuinely love fight scenes. I'll take fight scenes over talking heads any day.
I love that. Yeah, it's definitely, it's been a long time since I've ever had like sat down, done any of my writing and stuff, but it definitely is like looking at lots of other stuff, and you just get so many ideas. And a lot of people have asked me like over time, like would I ever write like an ancient Egypt like fiction book, and I don't think I could, because I think I would be too, I think I would want everything to be so accurate, and I think because my whole thing is like, I think there are little things that you learn, like when you're learning about archaeology and you're learning about a certain culture, there are things that you are never going to know, and that annoys me. And so I'm just like one of those things is like, well, what if, how did the Egyptians go to the bathroom? Like if my character needs to go to the bathroom, how's she gonna do that? And I'm like, we might have some evidence of it, but we might not always. And I feel weird about making up anything, because I also feel like if I have this kind of position where I do advertise myself as an Egyptologist and I say things, people might believe them, and I don't want to be just write and put 30 footnotes on each page. That honestly, I mean, I think that would be funny, because I think it would just be like, yeah, you know, the footnote would just be like, yeah, I don't know if this is accurate, but you can see. I'm gonna grab a book off of my bookshelf that we can talk about, because this is a funny one that I think you will like.
Okay. Let's see. Apparently, I'm very on the whole cultural difference things, even though I'm very entrenched in my own Western European culture and can't see my own nose. Put 30 pages of footnotes at the back, like token. So
if anybody, I've talked about this book before, but this book, which you can see all my tabs in it, it is not the best. Not the best. It's okay. That's okay.
Hold on. My headphones just died.
Oh, that happens to me all the time.
I have my own sound things to figure out. Excuse me.
Here, I'll put this back so you know.
How's that?
I can hear you. I want to make sure.
I can't hear you.
Okay. It's because I'm not holding the control button.
Okay. That's why.
Lowering.
Is that okay? Is that fine? Do I sound okay?
Yeah, you sound a little like robotic-y, and I can still hear myself.
Okay.
I think you just might have to mute yourself on the what's it called? The guest star.
Oh, the guest star. Oh, okay. Okay. Turn my car. How about that? Ba-ba.
That's.
And Haley says, much louder.
Yeah, I can lower that. Yes, we're on a Discord call. Yes, it's complicated. We have lots of things going on because we needed I wanted her face cam and I wanted her drawing cam. It's a whole big thing.
That's interesting.
I think does that sound better? I think that sounds better. I think I lowered it. Hopefully.
What's funny is like I've basically muted my computer, but I can still hear you.
Very weird.
Yeah. That's fun.
Isn't that fun?
So fun, you guys.
Yes, so fun.
What's running right now?
Yes, thank you, Tapir. So I've talked about this book sometimes. So this book is called Unwrap My Heart, and it is essentially a like switching back so everyone can see your drawings. It's essentially these two comedians wrote a book. They essentially found a whole different thing where they found that there was a time period where all of these people would write books about teenage girls falling in love with monsters. pretty much after the age of Twilight. Pretty much after Twilight, there were all these different stories and stuff, and they found that there was none about a teenage girl falling in love with a mummy. So they wrote it, and it is quite literally the funniest book I've ever read. It is so,
oh my god,
it is so unserious. It is so just boring, kind of. But or I guess it's not even that. It's simple. It's just simple in writing. It is. The jokes are stupid. The jokes are just so dry, but it's just so good. That you can see all of my tabs. I stupidly have not finished this book, even though it is literally so short. But it just reminds me a lot of just silly things that I wrote essentially all these inaccuracies and but also accuracies, because there are lots of good things and stuff that were in this. But just there were some sentences that were just wait, no, I need to read that one. That was so funny. I lost the page. Where'd it go? Where'd it go? Oh my god. There it is. Cheese and crackers.
Huh?
It's
Mhm.
just 1 second. Oh,
Melissa,
I know.
I want to say now, to be clear, read GODSLAVE.
Yes.
And you come across the blacksmiths that work for Horace Heru. Some people were like, oh, what are the blacksmiths? This is probably something Meaghan made up. No, I didn't make it up. They're real. And I cited a link in those comments, but I just want to say it here and now. I didn't make that up. I made up 2 things in that comment.
So where does it come from?
It's I'd have to pull up the specific note, but apparently the followers of Horus were called the blacksmiths, and I think it's in reference to it says it's in reference to the fact that they had a lot of iron and they had a lot of iron weapons, so that's why they were called the blacksmiths.
I love that. That makes a lot of sense. That's
they
very
couldn't
cool.
make their body weapons, so I guess I made that. I guess you got me there.
You got me there. But I love that. That's really good. I didn't know that. I'll have to find that link and read about it, because that sounds really, really cool. Because there is true. They do, some of the cult followers have weird names and stuff like that. But I will read one line from this book. Hi, Uncle Bill. How are you? Welcome to the stream. This is Meaghan. She is, I can't keep holding the control
Uncle
button.
Bill.
Uncle Bill is the leader of this amazing group, which I'm going to shout out in the chat. Called the TKF, the Knowledge Fellowship, which I am part of, and it is a huge group of awesome streamers who talk about their major, their thing that they, so it has a huge and amazing range. We have our own friend Paleontologizing, who's a paleontologist. Then we have where's Ants? Then we have science and stuff. I clicked the paleo one. It's not working. Well, I did have to update my Stream Deck, so maybe that's what's not working. But science talks about ants and other insects on their stream, and then there's a ton of space people, and but yeah, Uncle Bill does all the cool educational stuff, which is amazing.
Sick.
Meaghan is the artist of a webcomic named GODSLAVE. She's doing a Kickstarter, which just got past its goal today, for volume 2. But yes, there's also lots of hobbyists and tradespeople as well on the TKF, which is really cool.
Okay, so it's okay I'm here.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sure there's lots of really cool people in the TKF. And more joining, I'm sure, as a lot of times. But yeah, so we're doing Meaghan's drawing some awesome, these are the blacksmiths, which are part of her comic as kind of the servants of Horus, who of course has just become a greedy capitalist man. Very, very fitting, I think, for Horus, very much so. I'm going to read a small portion of the Unwrap My Heart book, because it's just too dang funny.
Live reading.
Kissing him had always been new and exciting, but it was drier than I expected. Don't forget, she's kissing a mummy, who is alive. His lips weren't exactly in pristine condition, with the lower one hanging slightly lower than I would hope. At first, I had chalked it up to be my inexperience at kissing and his refusal to use chapstick, but now I knew it was something different. He was a 5,000-year-old reanimated corpse. No, he was my 5,000-year-old reanimated corpse.
Oh my god.
This book is just so gosh dang funny. And so the thing is, the best part about this is they wrote this. When did they write this? So this is by Alex Falcone and Ezra Fox. They're comedians, writers, and half of the Read It and Weep podcast. I think they write for like a lot of really cool shows. So this was published in 2016. They literally wrote this like right after like all of these. Again, they wrote it in response to all of the different books of teenage girls falling in love with monsters. And they found that there was none for a mummy. So they self-published this thing. And then it's literally, the publishing company is called Completely Legitimate Publishing.com. And they essentially made this and nobody bought it. Like, it was kind of like, whatever. He makes one TikTok talking about this book and it goes absolutely viral.
Oh,
and
good for him.
It sold out on Amazon. It was like one of the biggest like new Amazon things. And truly, like, you can see all my tabs. I've been meaning to make, I'm not even joking, the video was probably over a year ago and I never finished it because time gets away from me.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it also says at the back, the quote on the back is, "The most realistic love story I've ever read by Tutankhamun." One of my favorite things, though, is that essentially it's this teenage girl named Sophia who falls in love with like the weird boy who's a mummy at school or whatever, but she has this guy best friend who's of course in love with her, but doesn't say anything, and he is like a childhood prodigy archaeologist, in which like he was so young and he like went through all of the like normal archaeology stuff, but there's a hysterical portion where she describes what his front porch looks like. They live in like I think Arizona or New Mexico, and she describes that his front porch is full of rocks in the shape of phalluses and other like phallic like relics, essentially, from like lots of different time periods, where essentially this kid, when he was really young, on one of his excavations found one, and then it became the butt of the joke that every single other archaeologist friend just would mail him everything. And I don't know why.
That's pretty good. It's
so funny to me. It's so like not true. Like, archaeologists have that sense of humor, absolutely, but like obviously we wouldn't send
Yeah.
Technical difficulties, everyone. This was just great.
Excuse me.
But yeah, there's a whole big thing about him being known as the penis guy, and they're having like a very casual conversation on the front porch, and then she'll just say, "While he leans on the giant 6-foot phallus," or something, and it's
oh my God.
It's so gosh dang funny. And if I remember correctly, the mummy, he got like reincarnated, but then he has to go back to Egypt, and she follows him to Egypt and stuff, and yeah, and there's a whole big thing, and it is generally like one of the funniest books I've ever read, and I need to reread it and actually make a video about it, because I kept telling everyone I was and then never did, because that's just how it goes. Some of the time.
So good. You know, that like short excerpts. I'm glad it knows what it sounds
yes.
like. You know,
it is what it is.
It knows what it is.
It is. It's just not, oh my gosh, look at the little fan art. It's amazing. Of the mummy. Yeah, I can't remember what the mummy's name is. Well, this is what the back says. Sophia is just a normal high school girl, worried about getting her homework done and looking cool, when he shows up, a devastatingly handsome new kid, mysteriously covered in decaying bandages and staring at her from the empty holes where his eyes should be. She thinks he's just a hipster, but there is more to this handsome stranger than meets the eye. Yes, he is a mummy. we're not really making a secret about this. The twist is he's a mummy. It's a book about a girl who falls in love with a mummy. We've read books about young adult teenagers unknowingly falling in love with vampires, werewolves, angels, demons, fairies, mermen, warlocks, dreamwalkers, and trolls. Seriously, there's one about trolls. It's time for mummies, damn it. It's time for mummies.
What's it called again? Unwrap My Heart?
Unwrap My Heart with the lovely... Oh, I love it. Just like, unwrap my heart. But yeah, I always think about this because I think this is just such a really good way. Because, like, to be honest, like, I think even in my notes somewhere, there are things that I'm like, that's a little inaccurate, but, like, to be honest, it's not that inaccurate. If you take away, like, that it's a reanimated mummy, the things it talks about with ancient Egypt is not that bad. And I think it's just, like, funny that you could do... Oh, I did put this part. I said, there are no camels in ancient Egypt, only in modern Egypt. That's one thing, which is, like, a very little fun fact. But yeah, camels are not in ancient Egypt. They are only in modern Egypt.
Melissa, what's your consulting fee for
consulting?
inaccuracies?
To be honest, like I do most of it.
I do have some stuff coming up that I'm nervous about covering.
Oh.
In terms of like, what is this actually like? What does this look like?
Hit me up. Absolutely. We will make arrangements because it's just love this. Oh, see, this is the problem. I also felt like as I read this that this was just describing me as a person. So this tab just says, "Why is this me?" Oh, and that's why, because she's talking about rabies, and when I was younger, we had a bat come in my house and I had to get rabies shots. And so it's like one of those fun fact stories I tell people and stuff. And I was like, that's just wild that she starts talking about rabies. I was like, has this man read my diary? Like, what's going on? I
was also hoping that, like, if it is like a satire of paranormal romance books, they also describe the girl in the most vaguest terms possible, so that anyone can imprint on this character.
She definitely is a little bit. It's all in first person, and so she is an anxious queen, and we like it. Like, she's a high school anxiety queen, and like she just rambles sometimes. Like, and just the best ways, I think they write it so well of her just like straight up like cannot stop rambling. Will just like continue on and whatever. Where are camels native to? That's a very good question. I think they are more native to, I'm going to assume, the Arabian Peninsula. And, you know what? We're going to Google things. What my coworker at my...
does that, can I get a request?
Yes.
I have ideas.
Anyone have any requests of any ancient Egyptian motifs, people, anybody from the comic? What do you want to see? Haley, you recommend something because I know you want. I know. I think the Asian steppe. I was gonna say that as well. My coworker is always like very, very adamantly, like when people come into the section of the exhibit, they're like, she's like, I'll tell you it, or we'll just Google it. Haley said the Sons of Heru. How about that?
Okay.
Let me look up camels. Camels. Because it is true, like a lot of things are now have become native. I think it's called like nativized or something. But there are like places where they generally come up.
The opposite of colonized.
Yes, the opposite of colonized is that they have, which actually the weird part is it is kind of colonized. It's like people brought them there and now they have become native to that area. So it almost is colonized. Maybe they
right.
But like they're animals, so they don't have a choice, kind of. So kind of the same thing.
It's like how boa constrictor snakes are now native to Florida.
My literal worst nightmare. I remember watching a documentary or saying that like the snakes have become so, because people just throw them out, and like boa constrictors, they just like when they get too big they just like let them go in the wild. Now the documentary said that they will slowly move up the states from Florida. I was like, no, I can't live in a snake. I can't live in a snake city. I can't live it. I can't do it. I'm terrified. But yeah, this says that there are 3 extinct species of camels. The Bactrian camel, which if anybody didn't know it, Bactria is an area of kind of the Middle East, like kind of Afghanistan, kind of some of the other stands, but it is one of the sections or not, it's not one of the sections, but it is a section that happens after like the reign of Alexander the Great, and when he separates, and when he dies and they kind of all like split it between each other, Bactria becomes like one of the areas, I think, in a little bit later time. It's a very interesting culture because it's a really cool mix of India, the Near East, Persia, and then like Greece and Rome, like all mixed together. Very cool stuff. Yeah, sorry, Tapir, I think we're dropping some frames, but I'm sorry for the lag. It's my fault. My computer's mad at me. There are 1 million feral camels in Australia, but they're an invasive species. Excuse me?
There are camels in Australia?
I have no idea. That's wild.
How did they get there?
Who brought a
Australia's
camel to
island.
Australia? This is the whole thing, man, that like Australia just like, you're not supposed to bring anything. Like you can get like your dogs quarantined for like months if you like don't like do it like naturally and stuff. Some huge celebrity, I can't remember, like got his dogs confiscated because he like went around the ways that you're supposed to do it. Oh, because Australia doesn't have rabies. That's the thing. It's like somehow their entire country does not have rabies.
All the things
of all the
Australia
things.
has.
Yeah, it's wild. I'm gonna close some of my Google Chrome tabs, so hopefully,
Okay.
not the ones that I need, but hopefully. There's no way that I can. I don't know. That's another thing I don't know about Twitch, is I don't know how to fix it when I'm dropping frames. So just like it just happens, and I'm like, yep, well, that's what's happening. The other two camels
Turning
are
stuff
the
on and off.
yeah. I mean, I like you can, but like it's terrifying to try.
Yeah.
But the other camels are the dromedary camels, which is the Middle East, Sahara Desert, and South Asia, and the ones that were introduced to Australia, says Wikipedia. And then a wild Bactrian camel, which is like northwestern China, Central Asia, and Mongolia. But yeah, that's wild. The little map has distribution of camels worldwide, and Australia is lit up like the 4th of July. Absolutely wild. But yeah, camels are not native to, were not there during ancient Egypt, and neither were, oh, it was Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. That's what, they brought their dogs and they got in a lot of trouble about that. I remember it. That's who it was. At first I was trying to think it was one of the Hemsworth, but I hate to say it. I think he would know better. But yes, you are correct up here. Obviously, there are zoos as well, but no, apparently these are. Now that I'm on the Wikipedia for camels, I have to look up the Australian camels because it's too weird that they're in Australia now. I need to know who brought it to Australia. In World War I, the British Army created the Egyptian Camel Transport Corps, which consisted of a group of Egyptian camel drivers and their camels.
Of course they did.
Of course they did. It's always the best thing. Wait, excuse me? The United States Army established the U.S. Camel Corps, stationed in California in the 19th century. One may still see the stables at the Benicia Arsenal in Benicia, California, which is the historical museum.
It didn't work out.
Saying, though the experimental use of camels was seen as a success, because John B. Floyd, Secretary of War, in 1858 recommended that funds be allocated towards obtaining 1,000 more camels, the outbreak of the American Civil War in 1861 saw the end of the Camel Corps. Texas became part of the Confederacy, and most of the camels were left away to wander in the desert.
Oh my
Of
god.
Texas. I did not realize that camels were so helpful. Like, I've always seen camels as kind of like a herding kind of, like they just carry stuff, but like apparently they might be good, because there's an entire section all about them using camel cores that is hysterical.
Must be like something about them's more like efficient than
Maybe.
horses.
I mean, they do survive, I think, longer in like desolate areas because of all the water in their humps, which I think is actually a misnomer. I think they actually don't carry water in their humps. I think people think they do, and I think that is something that I heard that might be wrong.
It's definitely something I thought until you said it.
The British shakes fist, Haley. That is true.
The U.S. tried to introduce the camel cores, and obviously it didn't work out.
Yeah.
Makes me think of like the puppet history episode about
the
them
emus
trying to eat hippos. They tried to replace.
I was gonna say I love puppet history. Puppet history.
Yes.
If you haven't watched Puppet History, watch Puppet History. It is literally the best.
Oh my gosh.
And the lore of Puppet History.
How did you like their Hatshepsut episode?
I remember having some problems about it. I can't remember what it was at the moment, but there were some things that I think were a little off. Hatshepsut's such a difficult topic, and I think I'm eventually going to have one of our past guests, while she mainly does, well, they mainly do like Mesopotamian like language and stuff like that, also kind of have to focus in like gender studies and LGBTQ studies and like looking at history and stuff, and they have told me that they have some things that they disagree with me about, like a video I did about Hatshepsut, and like I do not have like the knowledge base for like LGBTQ history and stuff like that, and so I'm very interested to kind of hear that side of it, because I'm very much on an art history side and like the very like kind of the basics and stuff like that, and so I don't really go with the whole that Hatshepsut was, a lot of people say that she was the first transgender person. Like I don't go with that, because what we can see, like if she was, which granted, like that even concept does not exist back then, like, and that's a whole really one big like blanket statement that I always have, is that like you have to call these LGBTQ like or gay similar, like you can't call it that, because that's not what it is, because they did not have the concept, they did not know and stuff, and so it's one of those things that I'm like always blanket statement. It's like it's never going to be what you think it is, because they do not have the same perception that we do now, but it might have been similar, but the main thing is that even though Hatshepsut depicts herself as a man in lots of images, her name always has a female determinative and always uses female endings. So to me, it's kind of like, well, then it's the way that she wants herself to be depicted, and then the way that she privately depicts herself, and kind of thing like that. I know, I just realized that there is a new Puppet History episode coming out, which I've been waiting since, what's his name, killed the professor. Oh
my god.
Have you not seen spoiler? Ryan killed the professor at the end of last season. He sent him back in time and got him eaten by a dinosaur.
You got some catching up. There's been like a whole season.
Has there been a whole season? Oh my god. I must be so behind, but I remember that was so funny.
It's still very good.
It's always very good. And I loved, even prior to Puppet History, he also did I can't remember, it was Shane's show when he was on BuzzFeed, and it was another history show, and there are those episodes are very, very good, and it's just I always want to call it Hysterical Histories, but I know that's like a British TV show from a long time ago.
Oh my god, I forgot about Hysterical Histories.
Yeah. I'm gonna look at what Shane J BuzzFeed, because I do like those episodes, even though they don't have a lot. They have one about all the bad popes in like the history of the popes, and they are really, really funny. But I've got to remember what.
Horses have serious endurance issues, says Uncle Bill, which is why the Pony Express was built on relay stations. I'm assuming camels are a bit stronger in that regard.
That makes sense. That does make sense. But I think it's very funny that we always associate camels and we also associate horses with ancient Egypt, but horses were not even introduced to Egypt until the New Kingdom. Like, they didn't even have horses to build the pyramids, which is just like a wild thing that I think lots of people thought about. That like the horses weren't introduced until right before the New Kingdom because like you obviously see like Ramses the Great like on his horse and stuff with horse and chariot, but horses and chariots weren't introduced until like they didn't invent them. They were brought, I think, from like the Near East. Look at all the sons of Horus.
They were what did you call it again? The opposite of colonized.
Oh, naturalized.
They're naturalized.
Naturalized. Yeah, exactly. I always have such trouble remembering all the names of the sons of Horus. I always remember Amseti and Hapi, and then I always forget Duamutef and the Queb. I love how you just wrote Queb because that's the really long name that I don't remember.
It's like Queb as Senueth.
I think it's Queb as Senueth. Yeah,
Senueth.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But Queb is fine. But I love them. They're so cute. I definitely like love these characters because they are just like they don't really do a lot in like mythology. Like we have it's like the whole concept of canopic jars is always kind of funny to me, but then you're like, why did they have to have names? And why did they have to be like the four sons of Horus? But like it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like they could have just put little statues on them and moved on. But like they have to be it's like this god is gonna protect the stomach. This god is gonna protect the liver. And it's just like it's so like specific, but I just I love it. It's just kind of random and kind of funny.
Well, it's like you said, like there's so many gods that like are just around.
Yeah.
And either don't do anything, or if they did stuff, those facts or those stories are gone.
Yeah.
And so it's been interesting doing GODSLAVE and having to either like piece together context or just come up with context for certain gods. So like with the boys, with the idea of like they are the sons of Horus, but their like origin story is pretty messy and probably I would think kind of seen as shameful. And so when they come up in the comic that like that comes up is that maybe they aren't, well liked because of how they came to be. It's really this like pull and push of like wanting to be faithful and obviously like coming from a place of love and enjoying Egyptian mythology and wanting to present that, but also having to put together a coherent story.
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, that's when I'm totally cool with like you giving liberties to stuff because you're right. Like there are just gods that we know literally nothing about. Mentioning again Medjed, all we know about him is that he protects Horus and he has fire that shoots from his eyes, which is like a great fact. It's definitely more than some other gods. Some gods don't even get that. But he's in 2 random papyri. Like that's it. 2, I think he's mentioned in 3 and pictured in 2. I think that is literally, and that in comparison to like how much papyri that we have preserved and how much existed out there, we have so little, but that still is a pretty low percentage, surprisingly. Even though we don't have a ton of papyri left, it is just it's just the most random god ever. And there are other ones like that, like I can't remember the name of it now. But there's a goddess of childbirth, and somebody even reminded me in the chat. So yeah, another one. There's a goddess of childbirth, and she can either be like shown as herself, or she's literally shown as a brick with a head, because in ancient Egypt there were these things called birthing bricks, and we actually have one preserved, which is like really cool. But it's a brick, and it is is colored and designed. It has like images of childbirth and just like images of protection and whatever. But essentially, women would squat to give birth, and you would step on these bricks. So you were just like highly, like a little bit elevated and stuff. And it was just also, you would stand on the bricks, and then you might be like surrounded by like midwives or like priestesses or something, like to like give birth in like a safe environment and stuff. But there's this goddess who's like a goddess of childbirth, and you literally see her, and it's this brick with just like a head coming out of it. I need to look up her name. But again, like completely random, probably is in not a single like text anywhere. Let me see, goddess. I did a video about her, but I cannot remember her name for the life of me. Egyptian birthing brick. If I type in birthing brick, that'll pop up.
Really wants to see it.
Meshkenet.
Really wants to see the picture of the brick goddess.
Meshkenet. I can pull one up.
Beautiful name.
Yeah. Meshkenet. Nope, I spelled it wrong. Meshkenet.
There was one point, I can't remember who it was, but on Patreon I was doing a series of like alternate universe illustrations where Edith serves a different god. So, like, and I had them vote. We're like, all right, 1 month it's gonna be Anubis. 1 month it's gonna be vote. It's gonna be Ra. And someone was like, when is Medjet?
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, we can do this, but there is so little for me
There's
to go
so
off
little.
here, guys.
Oh, thank you, so Charlie's Dragon grabbed it. I'm putting it up on the, I don't know. I'm putting it up on the monitor, but if it actually goes on. Beep. Nope, come on. Show the dang thing. Nope. There we go. But you can see her like she'll look like this. I'll share my screen with you. Now everyone can see it, but oh my god, wait. This is like so complicated, so many different pages. So like she has like this kind of loop-de-loop on her head, but then like there we go. She's a brick. That's like it.
Oh!
She's just literally a brick. Like, and granted, this is like an artist like drawing. I think there is an actual one. There she is. She's right here, sitting above Anubis, like in the scales and stuff. And like she's down here.
Thinking, like fish head mermaid, but she's a brick
No, she's
mermaid.
literally a brick.
My God.
Oh yeah, here she is. She's up at the top, here. But yeah, it's like just a little brick with a head, which is funny. And then there's also
I was wrong.
There's also an Egyptian tree goddess.
Is she a head with?
She's like a tree. Like some of them are simple, like she's coming out of the tree. But I've seen ones. Oh wait, no, I'm thinking of a different one. But yeah, a tree goddess, like she's coming out of a tree, or like a tree's coming out of her head, or she's in a tree. So like that's not as weird. I'm thinking of Egyptian, like mount. I wonder if I can find it. Mountain goddess. Yeah, this is really a bad image, but the I gotta find a better one. It's kind of like open image.
Oh, Charlie providing some very important context.
Oh yes,
is a cow's uterus.
Yes, thank you. I did know that. I remember putting that in the video I made about her. But this is like, it's called like an Egyptian hill goddess, and so you have like this image of like a hill like coming out, and then the cow is like coming out, and sometimes like this one looks relatively normal, but there are ones where it's just like a cow head. It's just like coming out of like the mountain, and it's usually Hathor, because Hathor is usually always associated with cows and stuff.
Yeah.
But like this one is like, it's literally just like coming out of the hill and coming out of the reeds as well, and so it's another like, but I don't think this one even has a name. Like I think it's just technically like like it's just technically kind of Hathor. Yeah. Portrays a stylized mountain with a cow of Hathor emerging from it. So it's just like one of the random things that like you see. But then you're right, it also always usually has like some sort of like tree of life or tree of a woman or something like that. But there are just
go to the bathroom really quick.
Yeah, go for it. There are just really weird ones like that. But I gotta rearrange all the stuff I did. Oh wait, no, sorry, I'm in the wrong one. Main monitor, turn this one back on so she can, but yeah, there are lots of different weird random gods and goddesses and such. Oh yeah, Charlie's, they have so many. They have many childbirth. Like, I wonder if there's even a list of like Egyptian child birth goddesses. Because to be honest, there's definitely more than one. Because that's the other thing, in Egyptian they don't really have it's not just one person. It's not just one god is equal to one like thing. Like, it's like there's just so many different there's so many different gods and goddesses and stuff. I did love your joke to Pierre. I'm a brick. Like, that's what she is. She's a brick. And again, like, I want to go back and see, like, I wanted to read and see if there's anything more interesting about her, but I don't think there is. Go back. Mesh Kinets.
What's the next drawing request?
Yes. Yeah, does anyone else have another drawing request? And please tell me if you're ready to go to bed, because we can obviously go on forever about this.
I didn't realize what time it was.
I know.
It was like 10 to 9.
No, yeah. We can probably go like another 15 or so minutes. Any other drawing requests? Any other funny goddesses and such? Because I mean, there are lots of interesting things. But yeah, so Meshkinet was a goddess of childbirth, the creator of each child's ka, which is a part of their soul. And she breathed it into them at the moment of birth and such. So she does have a little bit of a mythology around her, but it's not much. Her Wikipedia is quite sparse. Oh, but she is in the Westcar Papyrus, so that's pretty good. Westcar Papyrus is an interesting one because it tells the births of different actual pharaohs. So it tells like the story of the birth of Userkaf, Sahure, Nefer-Ir-Karir Kakai, and then who are the first three kings of the 5th dynasty. And in the story, they're supposed to be triplets, but that's probably not true. And she prophesizes that they're going to be king. That I remember now that's what she does. You like the one that weighs the hearts, like Anubis. Anubis is a big one. I mean, he is just like, it's very funny because I think he's very misunderstood. A lot of people is like, he's the god of mummification, and I'm like, or no, I guess no. People say he's the god of the dead, and I'm like, no, that one's not. He is more probably accurately the god of mummification, and I kind of put him as the Hermes of Egypt, because he is kind of meant to be a person who goes in between the afterlife and kind of, he doesn't necessarily bring people like Hermes does, but he usually is like seen as kind of a guide that can kind of go and do what he wants.
He escorts you.
Yeah, like he kind of tells you what's up. And like the big thing that I love is that if you ever see these images, it's a really popular image to see like a little bed or like a whatever and the sarcophagus on top, and then you'll see this Anubis figure like putting his hands on it and it looks like he's doing like some sort of prayer.
Yes.
Most of the time that's not actually meant to be Anubis. It's actually meant to be a priest wearing an Anubis mask.
Oh.
Because
wait.
And the really cool thing is we actually have, I think we have like only 1 or 2 preserved Anubis masks, but it's super common that priests would wear them to become Anubis and to kind of do stuff like that. And so a lot of the times, sometimes you can tell the difference, most of the time you cannot. I can tend to tell the difference if Anubis's head looks like a tube. Oh yeah, exactly. Like that is most likely not really Anubis.
Okay.
Especially because in that image, it has all the mourners and it has the priest doing the opening of the mouth. Like that Anubis there is probably a guy dressed up as Anubis. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, it's not, most of the time you're not really supposed to tell. I think the artist is pretty much like, I'll draw you as Anubis, but very rarely you can see that instead of like him having, because Anubis has kind of a natural Nemes headdress kind of shape where it kind of goes out and then comes down a little bit, but sometimes you find I'm ready. I can't wait. Sometimes when you look at the guy wearing the Anubis mask, it will look like a little tube that kind of just like, it's just very straight, like from like kind of the top of the head to the shoulders. And that's when I kind of am like, am I hella buffering? Thank you. It's because we're having such a good time. Yeah, I do not know. I don't know how to stop it.
The wires can't handle.
I'll turn off the chill music, and yeah, I'm like, it's only 10% of buffering of dropping frames. 11%, great. It's going up as we speak. I'm sure that, well, heads up to anybody. My roommate and I are changing our internet provider, so cross your fingers. Hopefully things will get better. They literally just installed FiOS like yesterday, so we will be changing over stuff, and so hopefully maybe we will have the brick. Hopefully we will have better luck with all this lovely Wi-Fi and such. I wish I just knew how to like hit a button and fix it, because I really want to like refresh my Wi-Fi.
Better
but
internet button.
Yeah, I really want to refresh my Wi-Fi, but I'm terrified of the consequences. I might do it though.
Couple, because while Ashkenet is always in profile, the Jet is always looking forward.
The Jet is always looking forward. That is true. That is true. There are very little gods that ever always look forward. It's really Meaghan.
Is there a theory as to like why a god would be looking forward instead of in profile? Because I would assume that it's in profile just to like convey more information.
Yes. So I am sure that there is some really fancy art historian who wants to get really theory and stuff. I'm sure there is an actual theory. From what I was taught, the reason why the Egyptians draw everything in profile is because they want to show everything on the body. And
right.
So if you look at your face is symmetrical on both sides. So you don't need to show it, but when you're looking straight ahead, you don't see the back of your head or your ears. So you always put your face in profile. But then you can't put your shoulders in profile because, well, yeah, you can't put your shoulders in profile because then you're missing you'll miss like your chest, the front of your chest. So that goes frontal. Your hips will keep going frontal, but then your legs, you can't do those. You have to do those like one next to each other. But then funny enough, if you look at the feet half the time, when your feet go side by side, you'll have one arch. You should be able to see one arch on one foot and no arch on another foot. The Egyptians often put arches on both of their feet, even though that's not how a foot works. But the only other gods that I can think of are fully frontal are Meaghan, Bes. Bes is most often completely frontal.
Right.
Which is, he's a weird one and such. And then the Hathor is actually depicted frontal, but it's usually just her face. you'll see like weird like Hathoric columns and such, like those are all frontal and stuff. And when her face is literally on an actual column and stuff, but you never usually see like her whole body frontal. And like animals, you don't really see frontal. It's like sometimes you see. I do hope, like I have seen some where, like I did my master's thesis on the depictions of Egyptian dogs, and there are some images of frontal, at least frontal face dogs, which are very weird and they're very outside and they honestly look more like lions. Like it's kind of you can't. It's hard to convey what a dog's snout looks like when you're doing it frontal. And so I think a lot of the times I have a couple where they look really weird because they don't really look like dogs. They kind of look like anything with a shorter snout, like a lion or something more feline and stuff. Thank you, Haley. It is still going, but I'm hoping it's not that bad. That's a very great one. I think that might be our last one because it sounds so good. Uncle Bill wants you to remake the Spider-Man meme with a bunch of Anubis priests pointing at each other.
Oh.
I think that might be a great final one. I love our little Medjed and the brick. It's so cute. All right, I briefly refreshed it again. It's probably going to be not going to work. Not going to help me anything. But we're very hoping that the Verizon Fios will, and hopefully we'll be doing cheaper for faster upload speeds, because that's all I need. It's more money for crappy internet. There's just so much about ancient Egypt that I think that's why there are so many stories and like pop culture things about ancient Egypt, and like there's not a lot that repeat themselves, like minus of course like the Mummy movies, which have been repeating themselves since like 1932, but like many of the stories that you see, like Mummy's Alive, and then there's also Tutenstein was like a really big one, which was about like King Tut himself being reincarnated and whatever. And then I watched something, but I can't remember. Mine wasn't that specific. Mine was like they went to Egypt for something, but I can't remember what show that was. And then there's Egypt is always such an easy thing to just like drop in very quickly. Like my favorite book series when I was a child is the Magic Treehouse series, where they have a literal magic treehouse where it sends them in time and space and everything, and like so they go to ancient Egypt and do all this stuff. Oh my god, this is looking amazing. But I think that's why there are so many great stories, and like obviously the Percy Jackson series. I'm trying to think of other, like, I don't know a lot of books that are set in ancient Egypt. I actually know more that are set in like slightly modern Egypt. Like there's a former Egyptologist named Barbara Mertz. Barbara Mertz was an Egyptologist who graduated from University of Chicago with her PhD, but she unfortunately graduated at a time where Egyptology was just not hiring, which hey is happening now. But she also was a really great writer. And so she actually went on to go under all these pen names and wrote tons of mystery books set in not in ancient Egypt, but she essentially, under her pen name Elizabeth Peters, she wrote a series called the Amelia Peabody series, which I would say I haven't read them yet, but I would say probably are a little bit controversial because they're essentially talking about a Egyptologist named Amelia Peabody living in Egypt just before like the discovery of King Tut. So we'll talk a little bit colonization vibes probably. But I have not read them yet. It has a very large fan base. But she also wrote tons of other mystery stories. and became very like well renowned for it. And it's kind of, she's always been a big inspiration for me, because of my love of writing and my love of Egyptology and stuff. And then I know I've also talked about probably my favorite book. I think it's my favorite book almost of all time, is a book called Nefertiti by Michelle Moran. And Michelle Moran writes a lot of really good historical fiction, but all over the place. So she's written 3 set in ancient Egypt. Well, sort of 3, two and a half, because she set in Nefertiti, which is an amazing book and has obviously takes lots of liberties for the time period. But very coolly, Nefertiti is not the main character. The main character is actually a person named Mut. I never can be able to say her name, but I think it's Mut Nojmet, which is Nefertiti's younger sister, and she is a real person. We do know she exists. And so it is an amazing book on the kind of reflection of looking at the entire Amarna period, where of course Akhenaten decides to just like flip everything on its lid and just like change everything and move everyone to this desolate part of Egypt, to a city he literally just built in a couple years, but from kind of an outsider perspective, because she's kind of watching her sister being like, who the heck did this girl marry and what is going on? And Nefertiti is 100% like the mean older sister, and it's kind of hysterical to see her as that, because I think we put her on a pedestal a lot. And so that's a really, really interesting book. It's definitely takes a lot of liberties, but I think it's an amazingly written book. And then she's also written a book called The Heretic Queen, which is about Hatshepsut. And then I haven't read that one, but the other book she wrote is called, I think it's called Cleopatra's Daughter. And it is about Cleopatra VII's 3 children, from via Mark Antony, her second husband, who essentially after her death get captured and taken to Rome. And so it's kind of a story about what they encountered and stuff. And it's a very sad story because it is kind of true, but they kind of fall out of history. We kind of don't really know what happened to most of them. So she does a really great job. And I think she's also written a book about, I think, Marie Antoinette, and then I think she did another one that is much more modern, but I can't remember who that character is. But I highly recommend all of Michelle Moran's books. She does a lot of research, and I think she does a really good job at it. Oh my god, look at these little newbies staring at each other. I love it because they're just like, who did this? Who dropped the body? This is absolutely the best fan art. I love this so much. Oh, the little brick lady. All of the amazing fan art we've seen. Oh, Sons of Horus, and our lovely Sophie and her mummy boyfriend. Oh, I'd like need a copy of that because that is just so funny. It's like absolutely the.
I'll post these and you can share them.
Yes, this will be great. Oh, it's so amazing. Does anyone have any last questions for Meaghan? Because we all need to go to sleep, and I do technically have to go to work tomorrow. So I guess I should probably go to sleep at a normal time. But this has been amazing. Definitely, if anybody has any other questions for Meaghan, you can send them to me, and I can forward them to her. Definitely check out the Kickstarter, and then don't forget to, if I can spell correctly, go check out GODSLAVEcomic.com and check out the comic. Again, I will be donating Lovely to the Kickstarter because I definitely want a copy that I can have and read, because I need to catch up because I'm very, very behind. I already know I am. But I think if there's no more questions from anybody else, I think we will let Meaghan go. But we should definitely do this again because this was really fun.
This was so fun. I genuinely lost track of the time. And
that happens.
I do really enjoy just screaming about this stuff. Thank you so much for agreeing to this and for having me. This was I genuinely had a really fun time.
This is so I believe me, when we did the one with the paleontologist who I've been like talking about and talking to via chat for like a year or something, we accidentally were on for 5 hours, and we were like, oh, oops. And like he's on the West Coast, so like he had all the time in the world, and I suddenly was like, it is 9 o'clock and I need to make a dinner for myself. And so I like at 9 o'clock made a tiny quesadilla for myself, and I was like, this is sad, but oh my gosh, this was so much. But thank you guys so much for all the very, very good questions. You guys gave some really good questions on the Discord and here. Sorry about all the Wi-Fi and, audio issues that we always have. That we always have in this lecture. This was we and we had to do even more work to make sure that we could get her drawing pad up here. But now I'm prepared for when to do this if anybody else comes on, or if you come on again. So thank you guys so much. I will sign off with you, and then everyone else, we will sign off, and we will go find some lovely person to raid. So thank you so much, Meaghan. Let me.
All right, bye guys.
Bye.
Thank you.